Here we go, man. Another
Hey,
episode.
we're live, baby. Let's
We
go.
are. We are. Thank
Another
you for
Grizz
listening,
win.
guys. So this is another episode of Fight on Montana. Like we said, we are two couch potatoes, getting to talk to sports, and thanks for listening to us, man.
Yeah,
So
100%. Welcome, guys, to the show. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on a couple other ones, aren't we, too?
Stitcher, yeah, pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast, we're there.
Yeah. If you guys are YouTube listeners, YouTube watchers, wanted to actually see our faces, since we are two beautiful, handsome hunks of potatoes,
That's
we are
right.
going to be on FCS Fans Nation's YouTube channel. We recently started a partnership with them, and just basically kind of surrounded by other podcasts without the FCS kind of realm. So again, they push out really, really good stuff. So don't be afraid to check us out on there. Rate, review, and subscribe to the channel, and then let us know what you guys think.
Exactly. Amen. Amen, man. So
Hmm.
yeah, this is just basically going to be a Grizz update, and then we're going to recap the Indiana State win, and then we will go into our next opponent for homecoming in the Portland State Vikings. So that's where we're headed with this.
Yeah,
But first, man, let's get some of the Grizz updates because it's one of those times of years, man, where if you're not being careful, you're gonna miss something.
yep,
So first one, man, soccer. They had a busy weekend. They played at Boise State, playing to a tie 0-0 or 0-0, depending on where you're at in the world. Then they came home to Missoula and decimated North Dakota State 3-0. They are currently headed to Sacramento State tomorrow to play on ESPN Plus in Sacramento State, and then Portland State on Sunday. So they've got a little road swing. You guys can catch those games if you are not in those areas of Portland State and Sacramento State on ESPN Plus. And so give a shout out to them that they're starting their conference schedule. And so this is kind of where the rubber meets the road, man. And that next step going to the NCAA tournament where they want to be.
100%, man. And I was actually in Boise this last weekend, and I
Oh,
tried to
nice.
sneak away from work in order to catch the game, but unfortunately, just didn't work out. But again, I mean, nothing but respect from the program. The NDSU win, that's what we love to see. We're
Yes,
hoping for a couple of those spread across the program this upcoming year. So fingers crossed, knock on wood. Not going to say anything else, but yeah, congratulations to them and good luck to them.
exactly. Going into volleyball, they had a man. Their travel forecast has been crazy.
Yeah,
They've just been all over the nation. So they were in South Carolina, I believe, last weekend. Did really well. Finished their non-conference with a 2-1 record in that tournament. They finished probably one of the best years non-conference schedules they've had in the last probably 20 years.
yeah.
So looking at what they play actually playing right now in Flagstaff against Northern Arizona as we speak. And then they play Saturday in Missoula against Idaho. So definitely 7:30 p.m. if you're not doing anything on a Saturday at night after the Portland State game, head up, support Grizz volleyball and support those ladies.
Hey, you gotta love this time of year too. I mean, there's
Oh
just things going on everywhere,
oh yeah.
man. I
Well, and
mean,
then we got 2 months and basketball starts, and it's just like
yeah.
everything's going, man.
If you say you're bored, man, you're crazy. Get off the couch. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
always something to do. So,
Always some, always some.
and then just wanted to kind of give a shout out to, I believe, women's tennis. They are here in the next probably Friday through Sunday going to the Barb Chandler Classic. So I wanted to give them a shout out. Good luck, ladies. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's the end
we're
of Grizz updates, dude.
yeah, sweet man. We're rooting for you guys. I mean, again, like I said, I mean, what a time of the year! It's nothing but sports going on all over the place. So make sure you guys get out, support not only football but just all sports, man. I mean, that's what
Exactly.
it's really about. That's what this community is about. So make sure you show love in any way that you possibly can, man.
Exactly. And we want to
Yeah,
support them because they're hard at it, man. This is the time of the
yep.
year that they're hard at it. So,
Hmm.
but Yeah, like you said, guys. The next thing we're gonna go into is just like breaking down the Indiana State victory. So Angel, did you get to watch the game, and what were your thoughts, man?
So I watched the game. Just a quick little recap as far as the point spread kind of went. 14 in the first quarter.
Yep.
In the second quarter, 7, and then we finished up the third and fourth and second half with 14 apiece in each quarter. Indiana State wise, they scored 14 points, 1 touchdown in the first quarter, 1 touchdown in the fourth quarter. When you look at the grand scheme of things, absolute domination.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I guess before I get into it,
Yeah.
I keep hearing this reoccurring. I saw a little people online, on Facebook, on different types of channels, basically being, "Hey, we were a little bit worried, when the game first started." Did you feel that way too?
Um, I was and this is what ESPN did too, their broadcast. They had this whole thing about, the Grizz not traveling to the Eastern,
Yeah.
and how long it's been. Well, we don't really get out to the Eastern because it costs a lot of money to go that way. So
Yep.
usually, if we're not playing in the Eastern, it's probably not it's either in the playoffs or we're trying to play someone that's closer to home.
Hmm.
So I thought that was kind of misconstrued. I know that it's hard. It's hard on people's bodies. I know just flying and going to somewhere, it takes a little bit of you know oomph to
Yeah, it
get
takes a
through
lot
that.
out of you, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of figured that first quarter would be kind of a filling out period, and kind of getting our legs under us. I knew this team wasn't gonna it wasn't gonna be a game.
Yeah.
How they did it, the touchdown on how they did it, how they ran against us kind of scared me. And I think that kind of shows something that other teams might try to take advantage of. Um,
Hmm.
but also, just hearing Bobby talk on, I think, the coaches show, that I guess there was some miscommunication on the defensive staff and also him. And so, who knows? We'll see this weekend
Yeah.
where they got a good running attack, and
And
it
and
will.
that's Yeah. And that's kind of what I was telling Adam right before we hopped on. I said, you know
Yeah,
what? Usually, the first quarter, the first couple minutes of the game, maybe first half of the quarter, I don't really know. Kind of is situational based on the games. There's always going to be a different team playing.
yeah,
You start to know the personality of the team after kind of that first couple minutes kind of goes away.
yeah,
After you get through 15, 20 minutes, you start to really see who that team is, the personality of the team, if they're really ready for war, for a
yeah,
fight.
yeah,
So again, I always see this. Everybody's all, well, the first quarter it was a little scary, it was a little shaky. No, it wasn't. It was a filling out period. I think it's just one of those things that naturally happens when you're playing a football team. You get the best in the first quarter because they want to try to make a statement, but you're going to see who's actually comes out on top time and time again simply because of the consistency, that
yeah.
aggressiveness, and that's something that we have on our side that unfortunately Indiana State did not have.
No,
One actually way I think you just kind of mentioned it. You saw a couple runs and you said that you're a little bit worried about it, and we kind of all go back to, I think his name was Dinka, that running back for Indiana
yeah,
State.
yeah,
Um, like you said, there was a couple of miscommunications on the actual defensive side of the ball. When he scored that 55-yard run touchdown, we weren't really ready. We weren't
no,
really set up. You know what I
no.
mean? And so
Well, and
because of that, I don't necessarily, and when you think about his first half performance, I mean, he had over 100 yards technically over the first half.
yeah.
55 was on that one long run play.
Well, and
So,
Bo- and Coach Hauk said that they had two calls in. Half the team was playing one call, half the
yeah,
team was playing the other call,
yeah.
and so like that hole that he ran through was the biggest hole I've seen, and I don't think anyone touched him.
They just
Um,
weren't ready. They
they
just weren't
weren't
ready.
ready. The calls and, and
Yeah.
and that kind of I was like, oh yeah, you're probably just playing into that. But if you really look at it, like you could see people like what is going on.
Yeah.
Like so, I
Hmm.
do believe Coach
Yeah.
about that. Um,
And then when you look at the whole game of how he played, he ended up with like 87 yards net or something like that, in comparison to over 100 yards in the first half.
yeah,
Again, just being able to hold him to negative yardage in that second half, you would think it'd be the opposite. If he's heating up, he's going to have consistently a good game throughout the course. So
yeah,
for me personally, everybody's talking about the run game. I don't see that as a worry because, again, 55 yards of his total net play was on a touchdown where we weren't ready. Granted, that's on us. We got to be
yeah,
better. But again, Bobby even addressed it and said, "Hey, you know what? You're right. We got to be better. We made a mistake. There was a little bit of miscommunications. We're gonna fix that." You
Yeah.
know, and it
Yep.
kind of talks into the the whole concept of fast tempo. You
Yeah.
know, or is that something that you think teams are going to be able to start to pick up on and try to utilize against us? I don't think so because we do that just as much in practice. We work
Yeah.
on those types of schemes. And the nice part about it is you never know when it's going to come, you know? So we do a job about making sure that we're lined up, we're ready. Again, that was just kind of a fluke play. So I don't necessarily count that.
Yeah, and like you were saying, the first quarter they slashed us on the ground for 96 yards. 55 of those yards were that one play. But like you said, defense, they got comfortable the next three quarters. They allowed 13 yards on 25 attempts
Yeah.
for the next three quarters.
I mean, you
Um,
think about that. Obviously, mistake was fixed, and
yeah,
again, I'm actually kind of happy it happened.
yep,
Simply because we need to get if it is a kink that we need to kind of work out, we're gonna work it out.
yep,
You know, so
yep,
being able to do it in a game like that, just okay, you know what, we need to be better. We need to be more logged in as far as the communication goes in order to get these guys lined out, and
yep,
vice versa. Make sure that we're paying attention in order for things like that to not happen because it can happen in the blink of an eye. Anybody
yep,
can line up, run a quick play. You know, on sound, and then before you know it, you're off to the races. I've had it done to me before. I've done it to other teams before. And
hmm
so just making sure that you're always prepared is definitely an advantage. And like I said, I don't think it was an issue of preparedness. It's just, communication issue. And so they're going to get it fixed. I'm not worried about it. And so ultimately, when you think about his play, congratulations to him to having, on
Oh
paper,
yeah,
a pretty decent show out.
pretty decent
But
show.
I don't think it was because he ran all over us. I think it was
No,
more kind of like, hey, just getting into the groove of things in first quarter.
yeah,
Obviously, that one play, everything else, obviously holding through the next three quarters, only 13 yards. That's pretty
yeah.
damn impressive from our defense.
Well, yeah, and like you said, like that was like the first touchdown, I believe, in like the first three quarters of the season.
Yeah. Isn't
So
that crazy?
that's the first touchdown, like offensive
Yeah.
touchdown they've gotten the first three games of
Yeah.
the three quarters of the season. So our defense is doing so amazing,
Yeah.
and I don't think
100%.
you're not gonna see too many schools run for 100 yards on
Yeah.
us. This next game is gonna be going to be interesting with Portland State because they are going to run the ball, and we'll get to that. But
Yeah.
some other things on the defense side, since we're just kind of going defense right now, Angel, Cale Edwards, man, getting that fumble recovery
How cool is
after
that?
Patrick O'Connell hit that guy.
I mean, that's what I was kind of looking at, man. I was
Yeah,
looking at from the kind of the end zone view, watching it out. Obviously, with us being able to run a 3-3-5, it
yep,
just gives us the ability, to kind of it's a little bit of a guessing game when it comes to an offensive line eyes.
yep,
With that, they were able to run a twist. Linebacker come ear hole the guard. He kept his eyes, and those bad eyes on the actual left guard, kept his eyes on that linebacker. Terrible pass off gave Patrick the opportunity just to run, literally just run
right
through the
through. Yep,
right through the B gap.
yep,
Obviously that's why the blind side, the backside is some of the most important positions.
yep,
When I think about the game of football, if I do have inexperienced guys, I want to put them on the front side of the quarterback simply because there's a little bit more better awareness. But if I'm a backside, I mean, it's complete trust. You're doing
yeah,
everything to know, hey, I know you guys are going to get me. So something like that cannot happen on guard play. And he let it happen, which ultimately forced to what? Cale Edwards picking it up, running it home for 6, which is great on
yeah,
our side.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
one of the most important things that I want people to understand. Having disciplined eyes is going to be huge,
Yep,
huge. And so I think obviously we have a defense that really kind of throttles those eyes and kind of messes up people simply because you don't know where the hell people are coming from. You don't know where your assignment is. It creates all this confusion to people that are still learning the game.
yeah, yeah, and like another thing, Robbie had himself a game. I think he
Oh,
was
dude,
named
he's a hawk.
the yeah, he's like, yeah, exactly a hawk, right?
Fucking
Oh
hawk,
my
dude. Oh my
gosh.
God.
Did you hear them? The announcer just calling him hawk, hawk, hawk.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I said it.
Oh,
When they said it, I
oh,
literally, right before I think he came down from, all the way to position, he tacked the run pretty heavy. He
yeah,
made a guy miss, him and Patrick were in the backfield, for, I
yeah,
think it was a sack or something like that.
yeah,
And literally 2 seconds later, he was just like, this dude's a ball hawk. And I was just like, that's the perfect way to talk about Robbie.
well,
It
did you
really,
hear?
really is.
Yeah, he is a ball hawk, but did you hear the sideline reporter? Like all game, she was saying hawk instead of hawk.
Oh yeah, I
Go
saw
Tar.
that too,
Like, I
dude.
was like,
I saw.
did she
I
really
did see
think that
that.
that was like when they said that, like that was his name,
Yeah,
or like what was going on?
yeah,
Like I was
and it
like,
was crazy because like that the actual like reporters in the booth were like Hauk,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then she was just like Robbie
Hawk,
Hawk,
yeah, like
Bobby Hawk, and I
like
was just like I don't know, I don't know.
it was,
It was just kind of funny to see,
it
you know.
was, it
I was
was, it
like,
was.
what the hell? But I was like, no, whatever. I was like, ball
He
hawk, whatever.
he is 3 tackles away from being the all-time leading tackler in Grizz history. So, uh,
Yeah,
I knock on wood, I'm pretty sure he'll probably get it this weekend.
yeah.
And so, craziness. He's still got, the rest of the season to pad that stat, and I'm sure he will.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, like I said, I always talk about his kind of story. I'll mention it on the podcast here a couple times, and just being able to know, him individually. He's an outstanding guy, truly, through and through.
Yeah.
He's a hawk in the classroom. He's a hawk on the field, man. He's just an all around good dude, man. Really, really super genuine, down to earth, and he's loving of everybody, accepting of everybody when it comes to the football field. He doesn't care about the size. He doesn't care how big you are, how small you are. He's gonna go out there and tear your head off. And I think and I think what makes him next level is just his instinct for the game. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
and I think that, I mean, obviously he fits in well with this defense, but just you have to have a little bit of an instinctual kind of touch to be able to play on our defense.
Yep.
And I think we have a lot of guys out there that fit that picture. And obviously, Robbie being one of those guys.
Exactly. Exactly. Uh, Also, one thing that just stands out, dude, to me, like we've been saying every podcast, is another game without an injury.
Yeah,
Knock
that's a
on
good,
wood.
yeah. Knock on wood.
Just that's just awesome because by this time last year we were racking up some injuries, and so haven't done that yet. One thing that I would like to get to, because I know it was a question of a listener, and it kind of did go in with the injury.
Yeah.
So thank you. Beware of the D. He from Duluth, Minnesota, man, born and raised. He told us, I'm still waiting for Marcus Knight to have a breakout game. However, it seems that the backs are splitting carries this season, which I believe is a good thing. Do you think him or any other of the running backs will get 100+ yards this season? So, you know, honestly, my opinion is I don't think we're going to see any back get 100 yards unless you see somebody break off a huge long run. I don't think they're going to you're not going to just feed one guy the whole game and whole game. You're going to see a constant, steady, 3-4 man rotation on
Yeah.
running back.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a crazy part about it when you kind of think about it. That's
Yeah,
a really, really good question. I mean, because ultimately, I feel like we all want to see Marcus have, a
yeah,
100-yard game,
yep,
really easily. But I think just with the talent that we have back there, it's going to be extremely challenging to do.
yeah,
If I don't know, I just had this is just kind of an instinctual feeling for me personally. I feel
yeah,
like when we play those tougher teams, if we're having success running with a certain back, who knows? We
yep,
might do an in-game adjustment, maybe give him a little more touches, which could obviously potentially give us an opportunity to maybe have a 100-yard game. But I think ultimately, I think this scheme is working really well because it's hard to really figure out what you're going to do. You have to adjust to 4 or 5 guys, 3 or 4 guys, actually, I guess. Their running styles, their techniques. Everybody runs a little bit different, even though the schematics are kind of the same when you think of the concepts. And that makes it extremely difficult. It's hard to prepare
yeah,
for one good back, but when you have 3, 4 guys back there that could all run the ball really efficiently, it's
yeah,
going to make it really tough. So I don't think I'll see that from a particular running back, even though maybe we kind of feel as fans that we want that. But
hmm,
ultimately, all that matters to me as a fan is that we have a protected run game.
exactly.
As a a guy that appreciates and respects the run game. I just want us to keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah. Well, and like the another person on eGriz, they said CDA Grizz says, I know I might be wrong and I don't know the stats, but Xavier Harris seems to be running with the most urgency so far this season. It seems like he's hitting the holes and finds it better than Knight at this point. I know no Knight has been filtering in, but have you seen the uptick in energy with the way Harris runs. I'm thinking I do. Um, I don't think no. There's a couple runs this last game where I kind of saw something where he was going a little bit faster, but I think Osmo was putting in the work too, man. He was
I
running
think so
guys
too.
over. He was
Yeah.
he was putting it in, and this last game, I think, Knight only had like 3 carries. So I believe, if I'm
Yeah,
not wrong.
that's a little weird too, huh?
Yeah.
When you kind of think about it, I'm
So
kind of thinking. I'm trying to figure out like the kind of the strategy behind that because obviously Nick and Osmo great guys, but even when Osmo was healthy
yeah,
behind Knight, it was
yeah,
Knight mostly getting those touches, but this game was a little bit different, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, and so
Well,
I'm still trying to piece that together. I don't know if it's a strategy thing. I don't know if it's a hey, we just want to make sure that you can, obviously be as healthy as you possibly can for as long as you can. We'll get you in to make sure you keep the rust off, but we're gonna need you late in the season. And with
yeah.
being so fresh in the season, I mean that may be one way to kind of interpret it, but ultimately it's kind of a tough way to kind of, really answer that question because ultimately, I think Osmo really kind of stood out this game clearly.
hmm
Harris is obviously super, super talented, but the difference is, I mean, they're just two different backs. It's hard to really compare, you
Well,
know?
and Coach Hauk said something on one of the radio shows that I listened to that. Sorry, guys, I'm fighting a cold. So, um, they had seen something in Indiana State where they know that the RPO, right, that they were going to be pass heavy this last game against Indiana State.
Yeah,
I know that they were going into it. I don't know if they knew this, but their free safety or their safety was injured, so I think they kind of knew that they could take advantage of in the passing game, and so they
yeah,
pass a whole heck of a lot. I think
they
that
did.
32, 33 times this game. And so I think that, the run pass option, I think, Lucas made the right decisions. He had some good passes, and he did throw the ball a lot more than probably they wanted to, because I know that
Yeah,
they want that kind of that 50-50 split, and it wasn't 50-50. It was more pass heavy. And
yeah,
so I would expect this next game, going back to Wagriz and playing Portland State, I think that you're going to see that kind of even out a little bit more, just based off of strategy and stuff like that. But
yeah.
I hope that, that Marcus, as a fan, that Marcus gets some more touches, because, the only way he's going to get back acclimated is getting those touches. But you could say the same thing about Osmo too. He was gone, not as much, but he
But
was
he was
still
gone
gone a
for a
whole
while, yeah.
season. So hopefully
And
he
that's a
gets,
tough part about it, man. Like, obviously, I love Knight. I have a personal relationship with him,
yeah,
and as I do Osmo as well too.
yeah,
Um, but it's one of those things. It's hard to want to root for one single guy to be that guy.
yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yep.
I mean, this is again just from a fan side of things. Ultimately, we want it to be efficiency. We want efficiency. If that ends up being that one guy stands out,
Yeah.
whoever the case may be, that just is what it is.
Yep.
But ultimately, you want to see all these guys get touches. You want to see all these guys make touchdowns and celebrate in the end zone, take cool photos, post it on the Instagram. That's what you want to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But at the same
exactly.
time, it's like we're so diverse back there. We're so heavy in that kind of situation, in the running back kind of room, that it's so advantageous to just give him different looks. And like
Yeah.
you said, one thing that I think we should be impressed about when it comes to just being a fan is the simple fact that we can change our playbook up to be more pass heavy and be consistent with it. Because
Yeah.
I've been part of teams, I've seen teams just watching throughout the game of football that, hey, you know what, they're a little bit of a 50-50 balance. But if they have to take advantage of the pass game, they kind of struggle a little bit because it's a little bit off the regime. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
And so being able to see that, I think it was extremely impressive. And I think, kind of what you just mentioned, it's just a good point to kind of see, being able to say, hey, you know what, we want to attack the run or the pass game a little bit heavier. And then actually executing that just goes to show, the type of players that we have on that team.
Well, and one thing that I want to see a little bit too is Marcus does a fabulous job of his hand skills, right?
Yeah.
He's able to catch the ball out of the backfield and do something with it. They haven't been doing that a lot this year. They've been doing a whole lot more of the run pass option and stuff like that, where you're not hitting the background, where the running back is kind of curling out and kind of being that, what the flow person or whatever, where you drop it off
Yeah.
and
The
hand it
read.
to you. The
Yeah.
read, yeah. So you're not seeing that as much, but I think that's something that you could probably see going down the future of the season where, hey, maybe he gets more touches being passed the ball on the side rather than being given the ball down, just running. So,
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. I just think that we have such a talented receiver core that
yeah,
he doesn't need to have that read and pass it down to the running back. You know
yep,
what I mean?
yep.
I think when you're kind of looking at it, I mean, he's seeing guys that are open, he's taking advantage of it, and that's
Oh,
one thing
yeah.
that I did want to point out. I thought Lucas did an awesome job, making plays happen.
Hmm.
Now with his feet, obviously we already know that he's talented
Oh,
enough
yeah.
on the running to be able to make those yards and make them count. But just through the air, I think we had an extremely efficient game, but they were tight balls.
Oh, yeah. They
They
were
were
very
tough
tight.
balls to catch.
Yep,
And I think that just goes to show the type of trust that he has in these receivers because
yep.
they're 50-50 balls. Some of those balls, I was just like, that's a tough one to catch. And then I see Mitch Roberts up there, leaping this over this defender by a foot, just making it work for him. You know what I
Yep,
mean?
yep.
And so it's incredible to see these things and kind of make these plays happen and seeing these guys get their first touchdowns too. I mean, Cole got his first touchdown. Malik got his first touchdown. Who am I missing? Somebody else got their first
Keelan
touchdown.
White
Keelan
didn't.
White got his first
Yep,
touchdown. Yeah. I mean, just being
yep.
able to have those guys that are really, just kind of take off helps build confidence in them.
Oh, yeah,
Helps put
exactly.
trust in Lucas to say, hey, you know what? Let's go. We got this. You
Yep.
know. And it was cool to see Bergen get out there and throw a touchdown too. That was kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the pace was great too. Like, so some of the things that I saw, that the pace was great, and then also just the pass protection, man. The pass protection was amazing. And we've been kind of looking at the line. The pass protection was awesome. We only had 2 sacks that game. One was at the end of the game, and then one was of Johnson. So one for Johnson, one for Brown. The Brown one did, end up being a fumble, and they ran it back. When he got sacked, I believe. But the pass protection was good. He had the time in the back to throw and to dissect. And then also just like you were saying, the great distribution of hitting all those guys. He's not on one guy. Does he have a
Yeah, I
favorite?
think he hit like 8 total guys throughout the game, man. And you're like,
Yep.
wow, that's cool,
Yep. And I really do like in the second half, I really felt like the second half, I don't know if it was just us tiring them out, but I felt like the line was getting a lot more push and getting to that second level of guys in the
Yeah.
background where they were getting to those running backs. And so I really feel like our line is starting to develop. And like we've said in this podcast, they've got another 3 games to go where they can kind of tweak things and kind of maneuver and kind of
Yeah.
develop, and it isn't as the lighting isn't on them as much as it will be on the back end of our schedule. So yeah, Dola, keep on developing, guys. And
Obviously, as a guy that kind of played that position just a little bit, I'm a little bit more critical of them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I think I understand the schemes of what they're doing because it's the same schemes that I was taught. There was
Hmm.
a couple times, like where I said earlier in the kind of podcast, that you say, you
Yeah.
want your backside to be the more experienced side. I think that we have that kind of scenario kind of going in place. So we have the backside, kind of a little bit more wealth of knowledge, been around the block, been part of programs. Then we have some of the newer guys on the right side. I
Yep.
did see on the right side a couple plays where on the pass protection they may have just overset just a little bit, which kind of caused one of those sacks earlier in the game. So that's just me being critical. But
Yeah.
overall, I completely agree with what you just said. I think throughout the course of the game, you saw that confidence start to build up. You saw that pushback. I mean, the production, it was a lot more dialed in. It
Yep.
was an improvement from last week. You
Yep.
know, and I think it was really kind of that next step to really realize, okay, we can play. You know, we can play cohesively as a unit. We can be productive as a unit. How do we take it to the next level from here? You know what I
Yep.
mean? And
Yep.
it's small things like that. You can start to see, very critical small things to really tiny things, but just a small tweak changes the whole perspective of, how to handle defender. And
Yeah.
so because of that, that's kind of the next level. It's not necessarily that I think they're a bad because they're really freaking good. And you
Yeah.
see that, week in and week out, and you see that improvement. And it starts to be that question of can they play to how far can they go,
Yeah.
every
Exactly.
single week. And I've mentioned this every single week, but it's just going to be the case of the name of the game
Yep.
from here throughout the end of the season. And like you said, we do have a couple more tune-up games I feel a little bit differently about Portland State specifically, simply because of previous history. But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is going to be a great experience for those guys, just
Yep.
to be able to develop that trust with Johnson and vice versa, being able to trust within themselves and that confidence too. And we got a damn good line, so I think we have
Yeah.
the right guys in place, and I want to see how far they can take it.
Well, and one thing that I forgot to say with the question that we had is in that game, I really felt like Osmo was the harder. He was hitting guys, right? So we
Yeah,
used Osmo to kind of soften up the defense, and then when we hit Osmo all those times, then Harris was able to kind of go through their defense and kind of make some yardage as well. So I thought we did the ground and pound kind of attack, and then kind of softened it up for Harris to go through too.
yeah,
So
a
um,
strategic way. Yeah.
kind of a strategic way. I don't know if that was meant to, but it worked out for us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, 100%,
um,
man.
special teams, dude. I gotta give it special teams. Our special teams was amazing.
Dude,
Uh,
awesome. PAT, dude. Oh gosh. That
yeah,
was good to see. That was awesome to see.
exactly. Patrick continues to boot it out of this
Yeah.
world. He had 6 punts. 4 of them were in the inside the 20. He's had 10 of his 13 punts inside the 20.
Yeah.
Dude, that is ridiculous.
That's a tough thing to do because it's all a feel thing, you
Oh
know?
yeah,
Nothing to try. You're not just trying to kick it out of the park every single time because if you wanted
no.
to, you could. So it's a
Oh
feel
yeah,
thing. You have to
yeah.
strategically place it on the field. And so again, he's playing consistently. Obviously, our PAT game showed some improvement this past weekend
Improvement.
as well
Yep.
too.
Yep.
I don't necessarily know if it was because of a change in environment. It was a little bit of a less pressure. You're not surrounded by 30,000 screaming people.
Yep.
Or it could simply be, hey, you know what? We just built confidence week in and week out. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So it's one of those things. It was good to see regardless, but I want to see how they handle it this week.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and one thing with Patrick is they don't really keep. They do the inside the 20, but I know a lot of those punts that he did at Indiana State. A couple of those were inside the 10. I
Yeah.
think 2 or 3 of those were inside the 10. So give a shout out to him. And like you said, you mentioned that PAT team did a lot better.
Yeah.
Um, we gotta give a shout out to Mr. Flowers, man.
Oh,
He
dude.
is he is so close. 33. He needs 33 yards to be the all-time leading, I think, purpose yards for special kickoff returns here. I hope he gets it this weekend.
I hope so
Uh,
too.
what would you say? Hout gets 3 tackles. Flowers gets 33 yards. It's threes all over, man. Threes
Yeah.
all over.
You know what? It's a season of threes, baby. We got to go do it.
Exactly.
I think that's a tough part about Malik because it's out of his control.
Oh yeah. Oh
They
yeah.
have to give him the ball
Yeah.
and say, we want this guy to come at us. And if he does, very, very possible things. But I think teams know, hey, we don't want to do that because we already know what he's capable of.
Exactly. Well, have
Hmm.
Bergen catch it and then just pitch it to him and say, "Go
Just pitch it in.
every time, every time. Here you go, get your 33 yards, man. Go get it."
Dude, I seen this video of where this guy, I don't know, I can't remember the context but this guy was about to score a touchdown, gave it to one of the linemen, let him score the touchdown.
Oh my gosh.
It was like a dream. It was like a dream come true for this guy. This guy was
Oh
jumping
heck
up.
yeah.
Dude, it was kind of cool to see. So who knows? Who knows?
Oh man.
Yeah,
Well, like you said, like I thought it was a dominant performance.
yeah,
Um, it has to be surreal going to a different time zone, right? And playing, and then they weren't there that long. I think they had to travel to Indianapolis, which is I think like 2 hours away from where they
hmm,
had to play because I think where they were playing didn't really have the capabilities of having them stay there. So
hmm,
that's a whole different thing too. Is that's hard on your body getting on a bus and traveling 2 hours when you've been in
yeah,
a plane too. So shout
yeah,
out to those guys doing their craft, doing their work, and doing it well, man.
yeah. Doing it like professionals, and that's what you want out of that football team.
Yep.
Again, being able to travel a long distance, that's always tough. I mean, I think about my travels from here to California, from here to Idaho, and I'm
Yep.
exhausted.
Yep.
Just from a couple hours of flight, I can only imagine being able to do that, practicing, going to get ready for a football game, trying to stay mentally kind of alert, especially in a new kind of foreign place that you
Yep.
haven't been to before for a lot of those guys. And then doing that at professionals,
Yep.
that was one thing that I saw. I mean, guys were, hey, we're just going to do our job and get out of here. We're not here to pick fights. We're not here to, poke fun of people. We're here to do what we need to do, get back on the bus, go back home on the airplane, and then just enjoy the afternoon. So it was nice to know that they were back home. I think they were back home like 9 or 10 o'clock or relatively earlier too. So give them a
Wow.
chance to go kind of celebrate the win together.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hmm.
Well, let's get into this next one, man.
One
Our
more thing.
yes, yes.
Fontes got on the board. Fonts got on the board.
Font's got on the board. He did
I
really
call him
well too.
Fontes. Oh, I can't believe I just
Fontes.
called him Fontes. Oh man, I'm sorry. It's been a week, boys. Font.
Uh,
Oh
I'm
gosh.
not gonna let you live that one down.
Oh my gosh.
At
Yeah,
least you
yeah,
didn't call him.
yeah.
At least you didn't call him Fonzie.
Fonzie. I mean, that probably would have been better. I don't know, but it's all good. You finally got in the rotation.
Yep.
I think that it was so good to see. I think he was a leading receiver. I think he had,
Yep.
just a little bit over 93 yards on, I think, 7 or 8 touches or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So again, it was really, really cool to see it. Shout out to Tommy. I think he's one of the university kind of photographers. He's always around.
Oh
He
yeah.
took a super dope pic of him just hurtling a defender. I
Yeah.
mean, put that on ESPN, brother. You know what I
Oh my
mean? Oh
gosh.
my gosh, it was so cool. So
He is a fabulous photographer.
he's
Like
talented, man.
his photography like is amazing. If you have not seen his photography, go hit him up on his Instagram.
Yeah,
Uh
let's plug him. Let's see what it is because I know it's Tommy something.
yeah, it is amazing to have a photographer like that at the university that is a part of your program has to be vital, you know.
Yeah.
It is totally amazing. So
Yeah, his Instagram name. So everybody go give him a follow, give him a shout out, go like some of his photos. Tommy Martino photo. TOMMYMARTINO and then photo PHOTO. Dude's a stud with a
he
camera,
is.
man.
He
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And that's where we usually get a lot of our kind of our backgrounds, our edits for our podcast. We've taken a lot from him, man. Just
Yeah.
simply because he has some of the coolest photos around. So it ends up working out really, really well. Yeah. So shout out to him.
Exactly. Give a shout out to him and follow him. His stuff is truly amazing. So
Yeah.
well, let's head on to our next one, man. We got Portland State and probably some bad feelings with you. Portland State, does that bad blood, bad taste in your mouth?
You know what? It's just always been one of those games where it was a different game plan, different expectation, and it always ended up being a different game. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's just a game of football. That's kind of to be expected. But some reason for Portland State, it was always down to the wire. It was always a
Yeah.
tough one. I've been part of some really close games. I've been part of some games that were super super fun, but it's always a battle with them. You
Yeah.
know, I think in the series since they've had the new head coach. I think these past couple of years, that's like I think we're up 4-2 against them. Two big wins coming to them. One of them I was a part of when they were at home, and I think they ended up blocking a field goal for the win or something like that. So
Yeah, wasn't it at our place where they kicked
it
the winning
was,
field goal?
yeah,
That
they kicked the
oh, I
winning, yeah,
remember that. I remember that
yeah.
game. I was listening to it on the radio, and I'm like, oh
Yeah, yeah,
Lord,
it was that was a heartbreaking one for sure, man. I
yeah,
mean, because it's one of those games where we had a different kind of, I guess, picture, a different prediction. We were expecting a different outcome, and we just came up short. Even
yeah,
when we went to their place, I think my senior year, it was a little bit of a battle. I think we ended up winning 30s to the 20s or even in the teens against them, but it was a battle. It was one of those tougher games that it feels a little bit more at stake than other games. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And so because of that, I've been on the winning side of a couple of those games. I've been on the losing side of those couple of those games. But it's always up a toss in there, regardless of where we're sitting in the league or
yeah.
those predictions or those sort of things. And so I'm 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 anxious and anticipating for it to be a good game this weekend. And
I
I
am
think
too.
this will be
Yeah,
a tougher challenge than even the South Dakota. Obviously, don't think it was a crazy, crazy tough challenge being able to play South Dakota at home.
yeah.
But with this team, I think it'll just be a little bit tougher.
I I think so too. And Coach Barnum, their coach, is a good coach, and I think he is one of the. I think Coach Hauk and him are the two leading coaches that have been around in the Big Sky. So
Hmm.
I think he breeds toughness, kind of like Hauck does.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to know about this team. So I'm just going to kind of go into what we know, but it's hard to know what we're going to get out of this team because they haven't
Yeah.
won a game this year, but they've played two FBS teams. They played
Two FBS teams, a bye
yeah,
week already up. We're kind of wrapped up.
yep,
One being University of Washington. I guess
yep,
we kicked their ass pretty good last year to, kind of change their program for this year.
yep.
Obviously the San Jose State. I want to be honest with you. I thought they had the San Jose State in the bag.
They should have. So San Jose State, they lost in the last 1 minute and 11 seconds, 21-17. They got beat by Washington 52-6. They got
Yeah,
smoked.
yeah.
And so what Barnum did, and I heard this on one of the podcasts, is he purposely saw that Washington was on their schedule and saw us, Montana, where we were at, and that he purposely put his bye where he wanted it because he wanted to get rested up for the Montana game
That's interesting.
because he knew that they would be
This just goes back to what I was saying,
yeah
30 seconds ago. It's a different type of game,
yeah this is
there's
their
a little bit of
Super
a tough.
Bowl.
This is
This
their super. This is we are their. I mean, we're everybody's rivalry, but
yeah
we're their rival. You know what I
exactly.
mean?
Well, and it's not like a rival that we think of, but have you seen their stadium? Their stadium is a I don't even think
Hillsboro
it's a
Stadium.
I don't
It's
even
like
think
a
it's a
high school
glorified high
stadium.
school stadium.
I don't
So,
know. Yeah.
coming into Wa Grizz where it's 25, 26,000 people, this is what they're going to be playing for.
Yeah.
It was
Hmm.
our stadium is better than San Jose State. It probably not. It probably noise wise compares to Washington. More fans in Washington's, but 2 weeks off. I think it's like 10 days off. I think
Yeah.
they even had a scrimmage where they got some of their young guys and they had a scrimmage and kind of did a scrimmage and so this team kind of scares me just because of what they have, man.
You know what? Like I said, like you just mentioned, man, just being able to strategically place their bye week, it shows that they're coming for something different.
Yep,
They're looking to make a statement, and they don't care about 0-2 right now
yep,
as it currently sits. They have a lot more football to kind of go, but they want this week to be a statement game for them, and I just don't think it's going to be that at all. They're hungry for a
no,
win. They're looking to win at a very tough place to beat. They're traveling to us. They do some things that's a little bit unique
yep,
to what we normally see. They run a flex defense, so it's a little bit of an unusual look. And even when I played them, it took a little bit of adjusting to, kind of sort it all out. The loss, there was some confusion. The win, we kind of dialed that in pretty good. And that's really just because of the front and the type of the pressures that they kind of show. They really just want to force pressure in order to kind of create mistakes. And I think it's going to be just the same. They're going to follow that kind of the same routine to be able to make some mistakes happen for Lucas. So again, I think out of this whole season, us being 3-0, obviously it doesn't mean anything because we're focused on the next one. But
yep.
this will be the biggest game for the offensive line,
So
100%.
for the fans out there that don't know, what would you when you say a flex system? What does that mean? What can
So
you give us in the layman's terms, like the easy terms?
no, man, I don't know how to talk like that.
Or just give us what you know, man. Why do they call it a flex? Like what's so
Uh so where do they line up? So they're gonna have heads up defensive linemen to either side to kind of create holes, and then
okay?
they're gonna use kind of this a particular kind of blitz scheme in order to kind of take advantage of some of those holes. So obviously, we run a 3-3-5, which is a little bit different. We have a guy that's
Yeah,
head up and two forwards,
yep,
giving you the ability to kind of go anywhere. They kind of create a similar type of confusion that kind of forces your eyes to either be really undisciplined or you're kind of looking a 360 trying to figure out or 180 trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And
yep,
so that's kind of, I guess, the simplest way for me to kind of explain it. They run a lot of stuff to really challenge the eyes of an offensive lineman in order to take
okay,
advantage of some of those holes in order to obviously create pressure, which in turn, give trouble to the quarterback in order to, potentially make a mistake, maybe make a bad throw, or even just go for the sack.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well,
Does that
awesome.
make sense?
Yes, yes. Well, I just wanted to kind of give you hear flex, but people might not know what that means, and so kind of giving more information to people. It totally makes sense to me, but I just wanted to give the listener a little bit more of information of
Yeah.
what that might look like. So, their offense, man. Let's go into their offense. Their QB, he is Dante Sheshri. I'm going to get his
Uh-huh.
name wrong. Sheshri or whatever is 6'3", 185. He's a sophomore. He is 30 of 54 of passing, so that's about 55% this year. 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's not where he gets a lot of his go, though. He is I believe, their leading rusher. Yes, they're leading rusher this year, so he is a dynamic runner and a pretty good arm. Not as accurate as I think they would want to, but only playing 2 games and only throwing it 54 times, that they're probably averaging 28 some passes, but they've got a dynamic running duo. They use him out of the back, but they have a beast of a running back.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Van Buren is a 240-pound mammoth running back that they use. He's only done about 21 attempts, 51 yards, 2.4 yards an average. But, man, 240 pounds. That coming
That's
out
a
of the
big
back,
boy.
that is a huge guy.
Yeah, that is a big boy. And I think that'll be the biggest back that we see up
uh,
until now, right?
I would
By a
think that's
lot.
the biggest by a lot. Yep.
Yeah. Oh
So,
my goodness, that's always a challenging thing. That kind of reminds me of Northern Colorado when we played them a couple of years back. They had a back exactly like that,
yeah,
and it was a physical game for our
yeah.
linebackers and our front, simply because it's like that's a lot of body to be able to take down.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so one advantage that we have, I think, that makes it a little bit better is that we have a bunch of dogs that chase and
Yeah.
chase and chase, so you'll never have to worry about being alone in a situation like that. Very rarely will it be one on one,
Yep.
running
Yep.
back versus safety or corner, or, making a linebacker and just kind of trying to truck him, make a move on him.
Yep.
Even if you end up missing, what we make up as a defense is that you're going to have 6 other guys right there in half a second. By the time a second's up, you're going to have all 11 guys chasing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
I
and like
think that's where we're going to really need to rely on that defensive side.
exactly, like I said, and they do also use another running back, Jalen McGee, 16 attempts for 79 yards. So I believe that's their more versatile back, where they use their quarterback to run outside sometimes too, and their other versatile running back to kind of run, and then they use their bus, Andrew Van Buren, to just blow people.
So they're bust.
The bus. But then they have probably one of the best wide receivers in the league too, with Bo Kelly, 11 receptions, 150 yards, 1 touchdown, averaging about 13 yards a catch. He's on the
Mhm.
preseason all conference team, so they do have a dynamite wide receiver. Maybe not probably getting as much as he would probably want with just only 150 yards in 2 games, but pretty good.
Mhm. Exactly. I think, again, it'll be a kind of just thinking about the matchup in general, kind of going back to, who they have on their offense,
Yep.
who we have on their defense, or on our Jesus, our offense, and who they have on their offense. I think it'll be an interesting matchup defensive wise, because
Yep.
again, I think we're both really kind of based around that confusion. Like I just said, maybe just 30 seconds ago, we have the 3-3-5. They're more of a 4-3, kind of a little more traditional, but they kind of, really kind of tack based on the offensive play in order to create some confusion as opposed to having preset things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yep.
so it's a lot of reading for an offensive lineman and for a quarterback. And so it's going to be, I think, a game of the offenses.
Yeah.
Who's going to be more consistent, who's going to be more productive. I know we have the more firepower on both sides of the ball, but
Yep.
ultimately, if you don't know where the hell you're going, it's going to be a tough game for anybody. And so I
Exactly.
think that's where we're really going to have to kind of hound in, keep disciplinary eyes all across the board, be able to make some of those reads. And if we can create some time for Lucas, he'll get the job done, whether it be with his feet or throwing the ball downfield. But again, that 4-3 flex defense is a little bit of a confusing thing. Might be able to hard to tell just from the naked eye, but when you understand it a little bit, I mean, that was one of the tougher ones to get adjusted to, simply because you
Okay.
don't see it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other wide receiver that they got, sorry guys, Nate Bennett, 8 receptions, 101 yards so far, 12.6 average. So they've got some guys, man. They've got some guys that I think that could be challenging for us on the offensive side. I definitely think that those holes that they probably saw against the Indiana State game that may not be holes. They're going to try to get the running game going, and if they get the running game going, they're going to try to pass it a little bit too,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of even that out. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm really interested to see how they use that running back,
Mm-hmm.
how we adapt to such a big running back and their quarterback. I don't, seeing how they got beat down by Washington. This is going to be a atmosphere that I don't think that he's probably ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't and not, don't take it out of context, guys. Like Washington, yeah, they have a great stadium, great fan base, but they're not going to be hopped up and jazzed up playing Portland State as if it was USC, right?
Yeah.
This is in conference. This is going to be a game where each side knows each other. Each side doesn't like each other. Barnum really does know what we like to do. He really
Yeah.
does probably follow our program. And he's friends with Coach Hauk as well. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. And if we're not alert, if we're not focused in, it could be a whole lot closer than what we want it to be.
Yeah, 100%. And like again, just I mean, you made a great point right now, just kind of talking about the actual difficulty of the stadium. You
Yep.
know, like you said, those guys out there in Washington, they don't care that they're playing Portland State. They care
Yeah.
about the USC's, the UCLA, to the Oregon States.
Yep.
They're not going to care about Portland State coming in order to play them. So
Yeah.
because of that, this will be a little bit of a different environment for some of those guys that may be a little bit new to the program.
Yep.
I think some people are going to try to compare it to that kind of COVID season where we kind of beat the brakes off of them. I think it was like 48-7.
Yeah.
But it's been 2 years,
Yeah.
it's been upwards of 2 years. It's been 2 years to kind of develop, change the team, change the things around.
Yep.
And can really kind of learn from that lesson, because I remember when we played them, Coach Portland State head coach Barnum, he was definitely impressed. I think he was a little bit shocked too that he thought he knew we were good. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
he realized they were that good. And I think he's gonna, he's 100% hounding those guys, letting them know, hey, this is our Super Bowl. This is a real deal. We got to
Exactly.
nut up right now. We got to get
Yep.
ready to play some ball, and we got to make sure we play it at a totally different level. You
Yep.
know. And so I think that's going to be the expectation for this week. It's going to be a lot more competitive. It's going to be a different game, especially now knowing that he changed around his schedule just to accommodate, last week's game to this week's game, or 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago game. You know, I mean, that's
Yep.
a crazy thing to do. It's a different type of feeling. If he did that intentionally, there's a reason for that. He just doesn't do
There's
it
a
because it's
reason. Yeah.
Montana.
Well,
Yeah,
he knew that he was going to need that extra week to get ready for this game because playing Washington's not easy. They're going to be
yeah.
bruised up. But man, their defense, man. I was just looking at the defense, and they've got one of the best defensive ends, defensive tackles in
They got a
BJ
couple guys.
Malo,
Yeah.
which he's a beast, 270 pounds. He hasn't had the
It,
season that I think he probably wanted. He only has 3 tackles, 2 for
isn't he a
loss, and 1
preseason
sack.
All American? Don't they have
He's
an
a
All American?
preseason all conference defensive end.
There you go, All
Yeah.
Conference. I thought
Yeah.
don't they have an All American like linebacker too?
They have a preseason all conference cornerback, Anthony Adams.
Maybe I read something wrong. Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
14 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. But their DB that they have that has had probably a better, well, not better in tackles, but Tyrese Shakir, 8 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 1 interception. So they've got some guys. Their defensive tackle also EJ Ani, 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 sack. And their linebacker Parker McKenna, returning starter from last year, 81 tackles from last year. He's already got 10 tackles this year. They've got some guys on the defensive end if you're not careful, and I don't really want to see that VJ Malo guy go out and have his all conference game on us. during homecoming. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this offensive line continues to develop, because I totally agree with you that this is probably, and not to, poo-poo, South Dakota, but that game, it wasn't as close as the final score. We didn't do the things that we needed to do to push that game out of the
And we could have easily done that. And I think
easily.
there's no question in anybody's mind that
Yeah.
it could have been a game that got really, kind of far away
Yeah.
from those guys. Like I said earlier, it's a game of the offenses, how they're able to handle the defenses. I
Yep.
think for us particular, when you kind of scrutinize it and kind of go a little bit deeper, it's a game of the offensive line. You
Yep.
know, really being able to handle, a couple of experienced guys, a couple of newer guys, how they mesh together and kind of face a little more of a superior defensive front, a front seven, you
Yep.
know, and that's gonna really kind of determine, hey, there's gonna probably be some learning lessons in this game.
Yep.
Obviously, we're just hoping for one of those games where we come out and completely dominate, but they're gonna need this in order to kind of prepare them for the back half of the season. They need
Exactly.
this, and so this will
Exactly.
be a true test for them. So I'm excited to go to war, baby.
Yeah.
I'm ready to run through a door. Give me some shoulder pads, give me a helmet.
There
I'll
you
come
go.
join you guys on the sideline, but I won't play it all because I'm too hurt these days. But I'll come join you on the sideline.
Well, and like I was gonna go through the points, man, and like it you can't look at this team and say, because like you go down Portland State, they're averaging 11 points. Well, who are they
Yeah.
playing, right? Rushing yards, they're averaging 103 rushing yards, 160 passing yards. Their third down percentage is horrible at 27%, but their fourth down percentage is 75%.
It's
And
crazy.
they have 8 sacks. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, so it's hard to judge what this team's going to be because they played 2 FBS teams, and one of them they probably should have beat.
Yeah.
And so my focus on the game. What do we have to do to beat this team? Number one, we have to lock down their quarterback from running. We cannot let him beat us on the ground, because if they're going to swing him out and get him going, it's just going to loosen up our defense, where we have to keep track of him, and then that big beast of a guy is going to just run down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think that we need to make sure that doesn't happen. We've got to get some turnovers, continuing to beat that turnover margin and continue to win that turnover margin, and then control the run game. Right, we need to beat them at their own thing that they like to do. That we hold steady in the trenches, continue to develop in the trenches, and develop that side of the ball. So those are my keys that we need to do. But hey, you might disagree with me. If you disagree with me, let us know, man. Right?
Yeah. No, man, I mean, 100% agree with a lot of the things that you just said too. I think eyes are my biggest thing. Eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking specifically for the offensive line, front
Offensive line.
eyes. Be disciplined on your eyes, be disciplined on your points. Don't overset because they'll take advantage of it.
Yep.
Make sure you're not turning your shoulders completely, because if you get beat on a twist, you're just putting Lucas back there in a predicament where he has to force. Obviously, he's elusive enough that he'll make some guys miss, but
Yeah.
obviously, we want to produce passing. We want to create holes. We want to give running backs a chance to hit that end zone, to get in stride, create, again, just holes. And I think we have the ability to do that as an offensive unit, get guys open, make some big plays. But ultimately, I think we just need to be consistent throughout the game and make sure we really hound on those topics throughout this actual coming week, being able to practice for them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good game. I can't wait to watch this game. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be at like 2:00.
Mm-hmm.
So which
Yeah.
is kind of a later game than usual. Usually it's 1 or noon. So
Yeah.
interesting. But do you have anything else, man? Because we can get into our predictions.
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm just excited, man. I think this will
Yeah.
be kind of one of the more truer tests in the first half of the season before we get into, kind of a rough second half of the season. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than we all want to think.
I think
On
it's gonna be.
paper,
Yeah.
everybody wants to say it's going to be a blowout win. I don't think so. I think this is going to be a good game. It's going to be a fun game to go to. We're going to need the fans there. We're going to need the support there. So get off your asses, get to the game. I'm gonna make the second half of the game too. I have to work the first half, but I'll be the
There you
second
go. There
half.
you go.
There you go. See, I'm making efforts. I'm trying.
Exactly, man.
Um, and ultimately, just go show support, man. I mean, I know Bobby's gonna get these guys ready. I know the coaching staff gonna get these guys ready, and those guys are hungry for a win. Because I know that they feel they're part of something special. You know, I
Yeah.
believe that down to the core in my soul, and I know that they're not gonna let this be kind of the Achilles heel, of the
Yeah.
season. So I think I'm expecting great things.
Awesome, man. Well,
Mm-hmm.
predictions. Unfortunately, Angel, you beat me last week
Yep,
um,
yep.
by 7 points, so it wasn't even close.
Mm-hmm.
So the standings are you're up 2, I'm 0. So
Mm-hmm.
I've got some ground to make up, man.
So I think I went last week, so I think you're up this week.
Oh man, I've been going back and forth on this. I've like written like three scores
Kind of tough,
down.
huh? Yeah.
Oh man. So I am going 31-13.
31-13. Okay.
Yep.
Ah, oh, God. That score kind of threw me up. I feel like it's going to be a lot closer, but then again, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Yep.
so kind of conflicted because originally I was like, I could probably see it hit in the 40s like it did the first time, kind of a high score, low
Yeah.
score on their side.
Yep.
But just knowing kind of the traditional rivalry of these teams, it always ends up being a little bit closer, you know.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go 38. I think 21.
38-21.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm
I'm gonna go 38,
three,
21.
they're gonna score 3 touchdowns on that defense.
You said what?
They're gonna score 3 touchdowns on that defense.
Ah, you're right. 14. I have to go 13.
Oh, I'm talking you out of it.
Yeah, you're talking me out of it. You're right, dude.
38-14.
I mean, what was your score? 32?
Mine was 31-13.
31-13. Okay. 31-13. Okay. Yeah, I can do that. I'll do the
Hey,
38.
don't let me change your mind. What do
No,
you want, buddy?
38-14. You're right.
30,
You're right. Three
thir-
touchdowns is ridiculous, especially for the type of defense that we have, you
okay,
know.
38-14.
Especially since we're stronger this year than we were that first year. I do think they're going to try to get a little creative, get a couple scores,
Yeah,
but I don't foresee them going over 14.
I don't
Again,
think
if
so
it's
either.
stuff, I think it might even be trick plays, where they get a
Yeah,
little bit lucky, simply because it's hard to kind of count for those. But other than that, yeah, I'm kind of sticking with that.
I shouldn't have even said anything. I should have said
Yeah, no, you
21.
did. You put me in the right direction, my friend. Good job. Thank you.
I'm gonna kick myself for that one. So,
Yeah, man.
well, like always, guys, you can rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. Like always, we appreciate you. We do this for you guys. Like you said, we're just 2 couch potatoes. So if you disagree with us, hit us up on our Twitter and Instagram, and hit us up there and tell us. And we want to get you guys involved. So
Yeah.
also I've been putting stuff on Egress, so get us involved in that way as well. So yeah, we want to hear from you. And
Yeah.
thanks for listening.
Yeah, and then also check us out on FCS Fans Nation. Just a little plug in again.
Yep.
Again, doing some really good things. Part of a really good community there. It's really healthy too. That's the nice part about it. Nobody's
Yeah.
toxic in the group.
Yep.
And it's just kind of nice to see that we all kind of have that camaraderie. So be sure to check us out on there. Check out some of the other podcasts too. And as always, go Grizz.
Fight on.